matches, and he was told by creative that's what happens when you have the money in the bank. You don't want to look strong, because if you're strong, you didn't need the money in the bank in the first place, and I kind of get that. Um, so, but yeah, he just tanked to being off screen so fast after not cashing in, and he said that he wasn't too bitter about it. He understood Cena was the one that was supposed to run with it. They didn't want to keep the money in the bank briefcase on him as a running storyline for another several months, so they were just getting rid of it. But he didn't like how basically he was just gone after that point. They didn't it didn't even really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So that's where they come up with Mizdow, Sandow being Miz's stunt double. Another kind of gimmick where it was just kind of like, hey, let's throw you together. We want Miz to do something. We're going to put him in tags.
And on the
You guys are friends.
I was saying on the contrary to the intellectual savior of the masses, this idea on paper did not sound very good, if you ask me. It's silly,
Yeah,
but still.
it was very silly. And they creative has been really high on Miz like forever.
Yeah, they really have been.
And this was a point to try and get Miz up and over, and Sandow was outshining the Miz. And they really wanted Miz, as by himself to really star, because if you have a star, and I disagree with this, but I can understand WWE, if they have a star, they don't want them sharing the limelight with somebody else in tag matches. They want them to shine by themselves, sell more T-shirts and whatever else they do.
Yeah, I think I've said it before, where it's just like, I think Jr. Jim Ross has said it, to where a booker a lot of times will see that, like, hey, I've got money in this tag team, but I would like to make money in 2 spots on the card instead of just 1 spot. So that's where that kind of comes in.
They had this build up with them. They got the tag matches. This was again a gimmick where Damien Sandow was kind of like, okay, I guess I'm taking this. I need to do the best I can with it. Completely on his own, even without the Miz. He starts doing the stunt double thing, even when he's on the ring mat, not involved in the match, and it's getting over so hardcore with everybody. It wasn't something that creative invented. It was just natural, spontaneous. And the Miz played into it really, really well. He was talking about him and the Miz were on the same page. Miz would take an extra second or two from any sort of bump to give Sandow the opportunity to take the same self-inflicted bump on the outside. They just knew what they were doing, and that's part of why it worked so well, is because they were working so well in tandem. So this, again, accumulates up to a point to where they're both in the Battle Royale at the Royal Rumble. Not the Royal Rumble, sorry, the WrestleMania. And this is the opportunity for Damien Sandow to turn on Miz, who I believe Miz, Sandow, and maybe Cesaro were the last 3 in the ring.
Big Show too.
Okay, yes. So there wasn't very many people, and you're like, oh man, this is it. Sandow's gonna dump Miz, because Miz's gimmick, with Miz being a heel and Sandow being a face in the same tag team, Miz was mistreating Sandow, of course. So you think, oh man, this is the time for him to get revenge. Well, I believe Miz ends up eliminating Sandow, and Miz doesn't even go on to win the Battle Royale anyways. So it's kind of like a missed opportunity, and I believe they're...
It was the opposite. It was Sandow eliminated Miz, and then Big Show just came. Yeah. Sandow eliminated Miz, and he got a huge pop, and then Big Show just kind of threw him out all, and that was just it. That moment was wasted to get the Big Show over.
Yes, and that was the end of the whole tag team too. So after that point, Miz is given a different gimmick every day where he's impersonating somebody random. He had a match where he's wrestling the Invisible Man. Just all sorts of crap where, I mean, again, in this podcast, he was told these are the gimmicks you're given when they want you gone. But he's a professional. He said he's going to try his best with all these things. And eventually, what ended up catching on at that point?
He became macho, like the Macho Man, and then Curtis.
Yeah, I guess
he teamed up with Curtis Axel because he became Axelmania after
Yes.
he got like beat up and never got officially eliminated from the Royal Rumble.
Oh, that's
So he
right.
just kept
That's
pushing it
right.
for a while.
Yes, and that didn't get over as much, although they were good for a low tier tag team. Apparently, at least from what he said at house shows, because they were doing house shows a lot. People were loving them at house shows. And then unfortunately, Hulk Hogan's scandal comes out,
Oh gosh,
and
is
that
that
breaks up the tag team.
that's so unfortunate.
Yeah,
These two guys get caught in the crossfire and they didn't do anything wrong.
no, and funny enough, I mean, about a year later, Hulk Hogan's clean and clear with the company, but
It took
Axel and Sandow aren't.
it took a few years. It took like over 3 years for Hogan to come
Okay,
back.
it took some time.
Yeah.
So yes, after that, Sandow goes back to his original intellectual savior of the masses. I believe he had a final moment. I don't know if it was another battle royale at the Mania, or if it was part of the Royal Rumble where he just got like a standing ovation and people chanting his name, even though he hadn't been on TV much. He was on the decline, and either of those matches he wasn't in it very much, but he was getting a standing ovation. This was his words again in the podcast. At that point, he walked to the back of the behind the curtains. They're still chanting his name very, very loud. And he said the big three and the creative wouldn't look him in the eye because they knew what they were doing to him, and they knew that it didn't make any sense. He said he, tried to find people, tried to ask, why he's not getting time. Then nobody ever had answers. Nobody ever had suggestions. They didn't want to take his creative ideas. And I thought this was all really interesting as far as Sandow goes. He said he was done with wrestling at that point. This was the mental health part where he was just depressed and he was pushing his friends away. Billy Corgan got a hold of him and he went to TNA. And apparently Billy Corgan's also running NWA.
Yeah,
so that's why he was on NWA.
I believe he's the owner of NWA. If not, it was Dave Lagana, and well, Dave Lagana's not owning anything right now. But but I believe Billy Corgan was, if not still is in charge of NWA.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were friends already or if he was just a big fan and they became friends, but they're friends now. And that's kind of why he's doing wrestling. He said he's kind of been able to resolve some things and he's kind of feeling the fun of it again.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen? He still hasn't really burnt his bridges. If he showed up for a Royal Rumble even if it was just a one spot right there, people would go crazy. I feel like WWE still has a chance if they wanted to at least have one fun day, if not have a fun run, or possibly give it another try.
If he doesn't want to wrestle, I think at the very least he could at least become an agent. Well, are they called agents now? I don't even know what they're called, but
I'm not sure, manager or agent. Yeah,
but he could become an agent backstage for somebody helping come up with matches and stuff like that. So
I feel like he could be an on-screen manager. Now that you mention it, his work on the mic was probably, and his self-character work is probably the best thing about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he was a mouthpiece for somebody, keeping that "I'm better than you" kind of gimmick, I feel like he could really do some things there. It just depends on who would need somebody to as a mouthpiece for him.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be kind of interesting to see, to be honest with you.
So, yeah, for me, finding out what exactly happened, even if it was kind of what I thought had happened, was really interesting to me. And I thought overall it made sense as a story for how WWE was being run at the time. Another quick point was you hear a lot of people, a lot of the top talent talks a lot of time in defense of WWE. And I somewhat understand it. You hear like Cena, CM Punk, even CM Punk and Triple H a lot of times will be like, everybody has a chance. You just got to make the best of it. And if you make the best of it, they're going to, do what's right for them as a company because they want to make money. And I always felt like for people like them that have had success, they know that because it's happened for them. But there's a lot of instances, I even say more instances where people have had that ability to draw in the crowd to make money, and it just hasn't worked for them.
Yeah,
Despite, so I feel like that isn't always true.
I agree
Uh,
with that 100%.
but yeah, that was if you look, man, I'll try and get a link for when I put this on YouTube, so you can click on the link and look at the podcast if you're interested too. Because I didn't hit everything on it, but it's really interesting, especially to look at it from a mental health angle instead of just hey, we're wrestling marks. I want to tell you about all this because one of the hosts doesn't watch wrestling whatsoever, and the other one is a avid wrestling fan.
Yeah,
But that's not what they're there to talk about.
that's I'm definitely gonna listen to this at least, if not tonight, maybe sometime tomorrow, because it sounds interesting. And I was always like, I always liked Sandow too. I didn't necessarily think he was like the best in the ring, but I love the character work. And to me, I mean, if you can be good at, you could be good at neither. You could be good at one. You could be good at the other, or you could be really good at both. And I mean, he had some good matches in his career too, but I loved his mic work and his character work so much. I actually thought he did a terrific job. He would be such a good help with some of these guys who need some help with characters. In my opinion, I think that's probably where he would fit really well at. If he were
I agree with that, sure.
if he were to come back in a backstage coaching kind of position.
Yeah, for sure. I hope even if they wanted to do like, hey, come help out at NXT, because there's a lot of people working behind the scenes at NXT too, and they kind of have a bit more of a freedom being separated from WWE.
Yeah. I thought.
Anyways,
I was gonna say I thought we were gonna talk maybe a little bit more on this particular subject, but we'll still talk a bit about it. So, and actually, I'm going to move. Never mind. I think everyone sees what it is. I don't know if it looks sloppy on the screen or not, but anyway, this past Sunday we had the final episode of the 5-part documentary series on the WWE Network for The Undertaker: The Last Ride. Great episode here. There's been a couple episodes that I didn't, that you watch, you're just like, it's kind of cool seeing some of this stuff, but it didn't really tell me anything. But fantastic episode. I think this is where the real meat and potatoes of the entire series is, the very first episode to the very last. The very first episode and the very last, I should say, where Undertaker in the first episode is contemplating retirement in 2017, but he has he has what he sees as a real stinker of a match against Roman Reigns. That's not how he wants to go out. So he's looking for that really, really good moment to go out. And then you see the production that goes into the Boneyard match. AJ Styles approaching him, which I thought was great story about AJ and Undertaker. And they hinted at it before in a previous episode where Undertaker saw AJ Styles, and it was just like, that's a good worker. That's a guy who gets it. So they almost hint at kind of like working each other a couple years prior, and they didn't even know it. But so we saw everything leading up to the Boneyard match. Biggest things to take out of it was that apparently Undertaker's brother had passed away the day before they filmed it, which is mind-boggling. And he still went through with it. That to me is insane. I don't know how someone goes through that.
I can't remember if I heard about that or not, but it's still mind-boggling, like you said, and really sad as part
of
the documentary.
Are you freezing? Okay, it looks like you're back.
Sorry.
That was weird.
Sorry about that. I was saying it was I don't remember if I knew about it, but it's mind-boggling either way, especially finding out more about it right now.
Yeah.
So I was watching the episode and very, very sad.
But by the end of the episode, we see some of the filming of the Boneyard match. Undertaker's arm looked like it was pretty chewed up after he hit that window, which honestly it should be. But like it looked like he just had like just like cuts all over his forearm. That looked kind of gross. Um,
I thought so too. I thought even when I first saw the match, he showed the back of his arm. I was like, oh man, that's pretty deep.
yeah. And then by the end of the documentary series, the end of this episode, they talk about how iconic of it was that Undertaker at the end of the entire Boneyard match, which in my opinion was fantastic. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but um,
I honestly, right now, since we didn't review it, 5 out of 5 for me. It was so good,
yeah.
so good.
But at the end of that, they play the Metallica music. He raises his fist in the air. He drives off on his motorcycle. You got the big Undertaker symbol in the back, and it's like, and at that point in this episode, they're talking about how, or Undertaker talks about how that could be the, that could be the perfect moment for him to retire, and now he feels content. He does not feel like he really wants to come back and wrestle anymore. So, does that mean the Undertaker is retired? We've seen a lot of hashtag thank you Taker over the past few days. So,
I was thinking that even before the announcement, I was like, if he's doing anything else, it's probably going to be these cinematic matches. What surprised me on the documentary was him saying how tough these cinematic matches are.
yeah.
When you're in the ring, you get the adrenaline pushing you through. You don't feel the pain sometimes. Whereas if you're doing individual scenes, there's a lot of waiting in between, and then it catches up with you. That makes total sense, but not something I would have thought of. I thought it'd been a lot easier to do a stunt, take a little time to gather your thoughts, gather your strength, not get as worn out, and be able to keep going on. But if it's hard to do that, then he might be, as far as on screen and ring, gone.
Yeah. I the thing with me is whenever it comes to wrestling retirements, I don't believe anybody anymore.
Well, even HBK came back for another match.
HBK came back for another match. Edge is back now. Edge has come back, and he didn't even come back for Saudi Arabia payoff at this point. So
that's true.
Ric Flair came back. He did the Australia tour and then went to TNA at the time. Terry Funk is retired like 58 times. Now, look, like, I'll be honest with you. Like, if that is the Undertaker's final match and final moments as far as an in-ring competitor, even though that wasn't really in the ring, it feels kind of like a muted kind of like send-off, but it still feels really, really good. I think there is some type of send-off where he's going to be wrestling in front of, 80, 90,000 fans at a WrestleMania or something. He has one final match, and he has one like big final goodbye to a huge crowd. But, we might not see that for a long time. I mean, we might not be able to see a WrestleMania with that many people in there because of the pandemic now. Which is really, really sad. But I mean, if you're going to be safe, I think those kind of big crowds need to be avoided at least for a little while longer. But whenever you think about it, like thematically, visually and stuff, that's a perfect way for him to go.
It really is. Like I said, if he was waiting for a good match to go out on, I don't think you're going to get a better match. I don't think you're going to have a better opportunity. And it's funny that it wasn't supposed to be a cinematic match like that. It just fell that way. And I think that in fact, there was a lot of coincidences that just had it fall that way with him against AJ cinematic, and it just worked out so well.
One big thing that I noticed of this is, if we can talk about AJ Styles for a second, whenever I was a big, like, whenever I started watching TNA, like back in 2004, because it used to be on Fox Sports Midwest here in St. Louis, and he stood out. AJ Styles was awesome, so I saw more and more of his work and realized, like, this dude's amazing. But if you listen to him cut promos back then, he wasn't very good. Since he's come to WWE, now he's a little bit more scripted, but he's done an amazing job. he's done a complete 180 to become just he was already a really good performer. He's a complete performer now. And he's 42, 43 years old too.
I realize that he looks young. I know he's been around for a while, but he looks young.
Yeah, absolutely. But they have Michelle McCool saying that, like, look, I know this is, she's basically just like, I know this is fake and stuff, but I'm starting to really not like him now. Listening to him cut a promo. And it kind of dawned on me, I'm like, dude, AJ was so bad like a decade ago, and now he's completely turned a corner. And as far as that, as far as that aspect of his game goes, it's pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, he's the best wrestlers. Really try to work on what they're doing, and AJ's one of those people. If he sees a flaw, he's going to work on it.
So, with this possibly being the Undertaker's retirement, who knows? Hashtag Thank You Taker. I'm gonna feel really stupid by tweeting hashtag Thank You Taker if he comes back at WrestleMania this year or something like that. But no. So, do you have any? What are some of your favorite memories and matches and promos and stuff that you have from the Undertaker?
Memories for me, and I'm gonna say a few quick ones. When he started out, gosh, that's one of my earliest memories of wrestling, is when he first started out and how mysterious and mystique he was, and how me and my friends loved him, even though we knew he was a bad guy too. Honestly, my favorites were probably him, Ultimate Warrior, and the Bushwhackers as a kid. It's kind of a funny lineup, I guess, especially looking back. But he's somebody that he was a bad guy, and I still rooted for him. I wanted him to win. We would turn the lights out whenever the lights went out in the arena for his entrance because we thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
I missed and still have missed all of the era where he was the American Badass, so I don't connect with that very much at all. It still seems really weird to me. At some point, I'm probably going to catch up onto that with Raw replays, but after that was kind of building on his legacy, and as you see a lot throughout the documentaries, really doing a good job. Actually, backtrack on that a little bit. Watching the documentaries, he was such a great person and professional for himself, for the company, for others, and just to help improve everything in general. Try to get other people to do their best. Try to get other people to do their best with him, to help him do his best, to help the company improve and be the best company and best matches that you can put on. And I think that tells you a whole lot about him, not just being a good wrestler, not even just trying to improve himself, but trying to be that leader, that person that helps shape the next generation in the best way possible. As far as memorable matches, I got probably a weird list of matches too. I liked as a kid seeing Taker versus Taker. It probably wasn't even that great of a match, but it was so fun to watch.
You had Leslie Nielsen in the build up to it.
Yeah. I like seeing Taker versus Yokozuna in the coffin match, despite the really goofy ending, which I liked as a kid again.
Yeah, also, I mean, it's goofy, but it was iconic though.
The casket also not being big enough for Yokozuna to fit in, which kind of ruins who's going to win the match. Taker versus Mankind at Buried Alive was a match I didn't see initially. I've gone back and seen it since, and great build-up, great characters. It was a pivotal moment in Mankind and Undertaker's careers, and it played off really well. I really liked Taker versus Lesnar, not at WrestleMania, but I forget where they were fighting. It was a little bit before that. They have the great screen capture of where they both sit up at the same time and they stare each other down laughing.
Oh, that was SummerSlam 2015.
Okay, so
that
was maybe, to me, Taker's last really good match, live match, anyways. Because the Boneyard match would be my other memorable match. It was just a 5-star match. But as far as live performance in the ring, I remember that match lasted a while, had a lot of story, had a lot of build up. It got a lot out of Lesnar, who also has trouble putting on long, good matches. So I feel like that was Taker's last really good live match. But that was my list of memorable matches that I remember for him.
I think my favorite Undertaker moment, and there's a story behind it too, was whenever he was the American Badass. He had a great return at Judgment Day that year too. By the way, for one, you should watch The Rock versus Triple H from Judgment Day 2000, because they had a really good Iron Man match, and it was completely different to the Iron Man match that Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels had, where they had a technical classic where Triple H and The Rock pretty much just had an hour-long fight. So it was kind of an interesting switch in dynamic. But the Undertaker came back and debuted as the American Badass, and that was pretty cool. But my favorite moment with him was at the Royal Rumble 2002. He just gets done beating up the Hardys and Lita, and or at least dispatching of them for at least a little bit. And poor Maven comes out, the tough enough kid. And Maven comes out, he's like jumping around, and he gets like halfway down the ramp. He's just like, oh God, I gotta face Undertaker. And Undertaker, who was super serious at that point, and he just got done fighting off a couple people he'd been feuding with. He sees him come down to the ring. He puts his hands on his hips. He's like, all right, come on down here. This is gonna be easy work. And the Hardys and Lita come back, and they distract Undertaker long enough, and then Maven drop kicks Undertaker over the top rope and eliminates him from the Royal Rumble. And Taker has, and the crowd goes nuts for it. This is like, it's like a Road Warrior pop for whenever that happens. And Taker has the ultimate "I'm so pissed off" look on his face, and Maven has the ultimate like, what did I just do? Like look on his face. And then just Undertaker just beats him up throughout the entire arena for like the next 5 minutes. And it was so funny. And then poor Scotty 2 Hotty came out next. He was the next entrant. And they play his music. And Undertaker stops, like Maven's still in the ring, or they might have been on the outside of the ring. Undertaker stops, he like punches Maven down, and he just walks up to the ramp and just punches Scotty 2 Hotty, and then goes back to beating up Maven. That happened to Scotty 2 Hotty so often. It's so funny. But that whole thing was fantastic. Other great moments. I mean, he's always had a lot of comebacks, like where we think that, oh, he's dead, and then he comes back a couple months later. But that to me is probably my favorite all-time Undertaker moment, just because, great surprise. Unfortunately, Maven didn't become a big star out of it, but it was still a lot of fun. My favorite matches from Undertaker, my number one favorite match from him is versus HBK from WrestleMania 26. It was the match where HBK officially got retired, and then he came back 8 years later. But to me, a lot of people look at the WrestleMania 25 match and they see that one being better. In WrestleMania 25, I felt like it was a bigger spectacle, but there was a couple like noticeable botches in it, and there's a lot of downtime because Undertaker did the flying tope over, and Jimmy Snuka's kid, who played a cameraman, was supposed to kind of break his fall, did not break his fall at all. So Undertaker just completely landed on his head. But in next year's match, they hit everything perfectly. It felt like they kind of like trimmed the fat from the previous match. HBK hits a picture perfect moonsault from the top rope to the announce table. And usually a moonsault, you land like body on body. It's like stomach on stomach. But the entire story of the match was HBK was going after Undertaker's leg because he landed awkwardly on it. So he'd been kind of limping throughout the entire match. And HBK somehow hits a picture perfect moonsault where he lands right on top of Undertaker's legs. So whether or not that was like planned like that, it was just like it was perfect. But had all the emotion in it and everything. Both guys just put on just just an absolutely epic match. Trying to think of some other really good matches because he's had a lot of them. Uh,
Yeah,
uh, the match he did have against Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam was awesome. I think that was like so he had the big match against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania the year before and got the concussion. And we hadn't seen The Undertaker really come back to be at his best at that point. So at that point, we almost all think he's done. And that feud going into SummerSlam with the big brawl on Raw, and then they have a they have a killer match on SummerSlam. It's honestly a terrific match from start to finish. It's just it's just two guys just fighting each other, and those guys make it so believable. Even though Undertaker at that point was 50 years old, it was really really good match. I like the matches that he had. The WrestleMania match he had against CM Punk was really good. Um, how about the match against Ric Flair? He had a great match against Flair at WrestleMania 18. That match was basically them just punching each other for like 20 minutes, but they still made it pretty awesome. Um, he's had some really good matches against like Kurt Angle. Um,
they mentioned it in the documentary. Every time he went out, it was everything he could do, no days off. And that shows with when I was looking at matches to pick out some of the best ones. Uh, I don't remember too many matches where, especially at pay-per-views, where I'm just like, that was a dud. They were all at least good. It was trying to pick out the few that had special meaning to me.
yeah, and actually, I would say another great match I didn't even mention, and unfortunately, Mick Foley steals the spotlight from him because Mick Foley nearly freaking dies in the match. But it's his match against Mankind at King of the Ring '98, where Undertaker throws him off the cell, throws him through the cell, and everything. Uh, Nobody really talks about Undertaker's stuff in that match, and really, I mean, Mick Foley deserves a lot of credit for taking the mad bumps that he did. But I mean, Undertaker went into that match with a broken foot, so um, and really, to me, whenever I think of Undertaker's best rivalry, I actually think right away to Mick Foley. But it's also because I'm such a huge Mick Foley mark. Mankind, Cactus Jack, do love everything. But Undertaker for such a long time was wrestling a lot of these big guys who you weren't going to see the best match of them. Really slow, like you wrestle against guys like Mabel, Yokozuna, Giant Gonzalez, even like Psycho Sid at one of the WrestleManias too. Even though I kind of like Sid, but it was Mankind that once Mick Foley got to the WWF in 1996, we started to see how athletic and how good of a worker Undertaker really was. Whenever you had a guy like Mankind, who was able to, those two were able to put together some really excellent ideas for stuff to do in their matches, and they had a really really good rivalry for those few years. And really, it was a turning point to where we saw how good Undertaker really really was athletically. He wasn't doing the zombie stuff that he always used to do. He got challenged a little bit more in the ring, so we got to see a lot more cool stuff that way. I could
Now, well, I agree with all that for sure.
say I could do a whole episode on how awesome Mick Foley is, but so if this is the end for Undertaker, thank you Undertaker. Big part of one of the reasons why we're wrestling fans is because Undertaker is awesome. I mean, it's kind of undeniable. Uh,
Yeah, I'd say as a retrospective, you see a lot of moments like the Hulk Hogan era, the Steve Austin era, the Rock era, Roman Reigns era, the Cena era. But behind the scenes, Undertaker was in all those eras and just a driving force at the same time as all of them. And that's
Absolutely.
an accomplishment in so many ways.
Man's been in the WWF since 1990. 30 years. And that doesn't include a couple years in WCW where he was, he wasn't bad, but didn't have the character yet.
Yep. Yeah, like you said, just thank you for Taker. And I really hope that he stays around to help the company, because that's the kind of mind of the kind of talent you want to keep around the mass.
Yeah. Like, it was kind of cool seeing on this episode, seeing him working with the people in the Performance Center. I thought so too. That was so cool. Even him like running the ropes in the Performance Center and just making old people jokes because he was there was pretty cool. It was kind of surreal.
Yeah, if they literally just showed us like second for second, several days worth of his life, I'd be interested in watching that too. So
yeah.
He's the consummate professional. Very interesting, good mind. Hopefully they can utilize his talent in that way.
Absolutely. All right, so I believe we've got one more thing to go over if you are interested, and we've got the Wednesday Night War.
Very, very, very quick. We can run through this. Do you have the matchups, or do you want me to go through it?
I know.
Down.
I don't know of all the matchups. I know that tonight on NXT that we've got. Let's see.
NXT is the big match is Balor versus Lee versus Gargano for the North American title.
That's gonna be awesome. I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the match of the day, to be honest. NXT is also advertising Bronson Reed from New Zealand versus Karrion Kross. They're also advertising Grimes versus Priest, two people that they're both trying to get over. Priest, I think they're trying to take a little more seriously, but Grimes, they're trying to just get him on TV enough to where hopefully he can get over one way or another.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it'll work. I really don't enjoy seeing Grimes, but that's just me.
And then on AEW tonight, we've got I believe we have a face-off between Orange Cassidy. Oh, yes, we do. Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho face off tonight on Dynamite. Oh, my goodness. That's going to be amazing.
I was seeing so much matches advertised. I'm not sure which ones I have that are actual matches that are going to happen. But, yeah, that's the big matchup for me. I have to see it. Hopefully it's not at the same time as Balor versus Lee versus Gargano, because I want to see both of those.
And actually, a couple changes to the card on AEW tonight. It looked like Moxley was going to be in action, I believe, or at least he was going to be on the show. But apparently, Jon Moxley has been in contact with somebody who had tested positive for the coronavirus, so he is not going to be on the show. Big props to John for coming out with that and trying to keep everybody as safe as they can.
Yes.
Same thing happened with QT Marshall. We were supposed to see FTR against QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes. Instead, we will be seeing FTR versus SCU, which should be pretty freaking awesome. That's gonna be a good match too.
I believe they're also advertising Brian Cage taking on somebody.
Yeah,
it's just probably a jobber.
Yeah, I think so.
Hikaru Shida versus somebody who's also probably going to be a jobber. Cody Rhodes versus somebody for his title match because he's been doing one a week.
Oh yeah, that's right. We've got Wardlow versus Luchasaurus tonight too. Oh my goodness!
It's a lumberjack match, so that's going to be pretty awesome.
So much for social distancing, but
I was thinking that too. We got Brody Lee and Colt Cabana on the same team versus Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss, which is going to be interesting, especially right after that promo you showed me.
That was cool. That felt like a movie.
Yes, it was done really, really well. Although I didn't like the music that much, but besides that, it was done really, really well.
The best part of that entire thing was Joey Janela inside the. I don't know if you followed the feud between him and Jim Cornette, but Jim Cornette likes to call Joey Janela Joey Nutella, and likes to poke fun of Joey Janela's gut that he has. And Joey Janela was inside the gas station, and He's like, "Hey, do you guys have Nutella here?" And I thought
Oh, I didn't catch that at first. Yes, that's pretty funny.
I thought that was a pretty great Easter egg.
And then one other match that they're advertising, I believe, is Santana versus Hardy. Matt Hardy is going to be the Matt Hardy that the audience votes on.
Yeah,
That's
gonna be pretty cool.
So they got a packed lineup, whereas NXT is only showing off 3 matches so far. Overall, AEW is probably going to be what I want to watch tonight, but I really want to see that Balor versus Lee versus Gargano title match.
I agree with that. Winner of the triple threat. What's up, game? I'm going with Keith Lee to win that tonight. I think Keith Lee's going to win, and actually, I think Keith Lee is going to beat Adam Cole in a couple weeks too.
Yeah, that's true. I think Keith Lee is going to hold on to it. I've thought Adam Cole's going to release his title several times by now, and he hasn't. So it's hard for me to say. I'm going to wait till if we do a prediction show for that.
Yeah, but yeah, my prediction is Keith Lee, the Limitless one, the Limitless Legion. But that's going to be a good I think tonight's going to be a really good night for wrestling, to be honest with you.
I'm excited. I always hype myself when we do these shows, and I'm hyped.
Yeah, I need to find something to eat, which is something I always do after the show too. Is like I need to get some food.
Me too. I want to say we are putting these episodes up on YouTube, so check out our YouTube channel. I should link that somewhere. I'll put a link in our Twitter if I haven't already. We're gonna have this up here. I'm probably gonna have to split it in 2 parts because we went so long. Check out my Twitter and my personal YouTube for that Matt85. I've been putting up some technology stuff. And what do you have to plug, John?
Just the Bear side of the mat on YouTube. I need to come up with a graphic to put on our screen here at some point. And
I need to update our YouTube in general because it's bare bones right now. I'm just dumping our episodes on there and seeing how it goes.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna raid CMAC here. CMAC, MLB The Show player. It looks like he might be playing his CCL game. I went 1-1 against CMAC. Good player. So we'll see you guys next week. Hopefully you guys Hopefully you guys have a good night. Thank you for joining us, and have fun in CMAC stream.
See ya.